Hello, welcome to Leadership Live with Anton Gunn. Today, we're going to talk about the number one problem that no one in the C-suite wants to address. It's the problem that they refuse to talk about. Sometimes it's a problem that they refuse to admit, and they definitely don't want to do anything about it. And I'm talking about the culture, particularly the culture as it's been impacted by toxic leadership. Now, I want to give you a circumstance as a scenario that I know you're dealing with. It's a challenge that happens all across every industry. And that is, you have a fabulous chief human resources officer. This is the person who has been loyal, the person who's been strategic, the person who's been at the C-suite meeting every single week. This person is so loyal and so strategic that they've kept you away from being sued. You got bad actors and bad behavior in your organization, but your chief HR officer is a fixer, makes lawsuits go away, finds a way to manage employees out of the organization, find ways to make sure that you can keep doing your business and be successful at business and not have to deal with multiple constant headaches as it relates to the people in the workforce. But she or he is starting to get burned out. Now, when I say burned out, that they are at wit's end because you refuse to address the challenge that they keep bringing up in the one-on-one meetings, that they keep bringing up around the C-suite, that employees are starting to disengage. Your employee survey results are trending in the wrong direction. Not only that, you have lost some key employees over the last year, long-term employees with lots of institutional knowledge who bring lots of value, and they decided to leave you to go work at another company. Not only that, your Glassdoor reviews are starting to show signs of being a bad organization, that you went from 5 on Glassdoor to 3 on Glassdoor. And the comments are getting worse, and people continue to talk about toxic culture. They keep talking about toxic leaders, making them work on vacation, making them work on weekends, being angry at them because they didn't come to work while they were sick. Yes, these things are happening in your organization because there is a toxic culture. The third thing is the people who you rely on to manage your workforce, your middle managers, what I call sometimes the magnificent middle or the messy middle. These managers are not magnificent. They're actually very messy in the framework that they're gossiping about the teams that they lead. They are totally disengaged themselves. And so you start to see this slip in this slide around all of your human capital metrics. But your chief HR officer has been trying to bring it to your attention for a year, telling you that we need to get rid of these 5 people because they are toxic. They're toxic leaders that are making everything bad. But at this point in time, you have refused to do anything about it. You say, I can't shake things up right now. Or we need Bob right now. Or we need Sarah right now. And what do I mean need? This is the biggest problem that I see in a lot of organizations. You might have a high-performing leader that their skill set is tremendous. They are hard workers. They literally know the job through and through, and they can deliver and execute on an outcome. They're very good at their job, but they're also poor behavioral representatives of the values of your organization. Now, when I say poor behavioral representatives, I'm actually being generous. What am I saying to you? This person's behavior is unacceptable. They're foul, they're toxic, they're disrespectful, they're antagonistic. Some organizations, these people are known to be crass when it comes to talking about people of a different race, a different gender, different age groups. They say all kinds of things that are inappropriate in the workplace. But because they are a high performer, because they deliver value, you choose to exclude them from the accountability. You always make some excuse like, well, he's older. He comes from a different generation. Well, that's how he grew up. He used to work for such and such, such and such. So you make all these excuses about this person's character when they have some severe flaws that's having a negative impact in your organization. So you make these excuses and the toxic behavior metastasizes in your organization. So now you got low employee engagement survey scores. You got people who are turning over, who are deciding to leave your organization to go work somewhere else. Your Glassdoor reviews start to look bad. You got all kinds of challenges in your organization, and you seem not to be able to do anything about it. You seem paralyzed. And when I mean paralyzed, that you literally don't want to do anything about it because you're worried about the unintended consequences. Well, I'm going to point out to you that the consequences are already drastic. They're already dire. Like you say you don't want unintended consequences. You don't want to do anything about it because you can't upset the apple cart right now because this person is a high performer. You don't see what it's already costing you. I did a study last summer, as a matter of fact, and actually today is the anniversary when that survey came out, that story came out, or that report came out about injustice in the workplace, mistreatment in the workplace. And what I found that here's the cost to organizations, $914 billion with a B, almost $1 trillion due to toxic culture, turnover, and disengagement. So this is happening to you. It's costing you more money. You know how they say it's cheaper to keep her? When they talk about don't get divorced, it's cheaper to keep her. That's a lie when it comes to workforce. If you got a bad leader who's toxic and making your organization more toxic, you got to get rid of that person now because it's not cheaper to keep them. It's more costly to keep them around because they're driving good talent away. They're making people less productive, less engaged, and less committed. And then it gets disproportionately and exponentially worse when they are carrying out these behaviors to women in your workplace, when they're carrying out these behaviors to people of color in your workplace, when your workplace gets a negative reputation that if you're a woman, don't go work there. If you're a person of color, you ain't going to stay long. Like these are the things that are challenging your organization right now, and you're refusing to address it. And it's not being talked about at the C-suite level. But everybody in middle management knows about it. Everybody in the field office knows about it. Everybody in the remote work site knows about it. There's a whole chat of people keeping up with the bad things that this leader says, that they've made a list. They got like bulletin board material. Did you hear what she said today? Did you hear what he said last week? Did you see how he treated Sarah in the meeting? Like all of these things are being calculated by people in your organization. And they're building a negative narrative about you, about your leadership, and you don't even see it. And I don't understand why you don't see it because it's right in front of you. If you just look at the turnover data, it's right in front of you. You have lost 50% of your top level performers, not because they are the toxic people, but they don't want to work with a toxic person. They don't want to be around a toxic person. But you can't see it or refusing to see it. And therefore, it is a problem that is not being addressed. Now, here's what I want you to understand. I want you to understand that toxic culture is not an organizational problem. It's a leadership problem. That everything rises and falls on leadership. It starts at the very top. Starts with the C-suite. To some respects, it might even start with the board if they're not inspecting what they expect. So if nobody's asking about the people metrics, if nobody's asking about the people in the organization, if nobody is interested in trying to understand what is happening in the workforce, then you're going to have this problem and it is going to metastasize across your organization. So you got to get a handle on things. Culture is absolutely a leadership problem. And you got to stop protecting toxic leaders. You got to stop. There's no time for it in this world, especially with everybody who has a microphone or a camera or some AI tool. They're capturing what's happening in your organization. in every ounce of detail. They're seeing things that they don't like and want to report on, and they're finding ways to report it, and it's costing you business. You don't know how it's costing you customers. That your reputation that you thought was dynamic, that you thought was amazing, and that you were, too big to fail, that you have the highest level of reputation, is being impacted by how you're allowing toxic leaders internally to treat people, and those people are going out and sharing it with other people. So there is a rumor mill about your organization right now, and you got to get a handle on it. So here's how you get a handle on it. I want to give you 3 things. I'm not going to be with you long. As you can see, I'm traveling today, not in my normal home office location. I got a keynote tomorrow morning that I'm getting prepared for. So I'm in a new location. But let me give you the things that you need to do. First thing you need to do is you need to do a 360 assessment of all of the senior leaders in your organization. This is how you get uniform accountability across the board. And what do I mean 360 assessment? If you're not familiar with that term, which I'm pretty sure you should be familiar with a 360, is that the person who is a leader should be evaluated by everybody who he or she reports to, by the peers that they serve alongside of, and by members and direct reports on their team in the organization. You need to do this for every leader and give everybody critical feedback about how they're showing up in the workplace. That feedback should be anonymized, that they should know who said what. They shouldn't be able to figure out who said what, but it should be critical feedback to help them to improve professionally and personally on how they show up in the workplace. You got to have 360s. The second thing you need to do is you need to stop with the performative diversity and equity inclusion work. See, DEI is not about PR. It's not about politics either, but it's about how do you build a culture that is inclusive, that values people who are different than you and different than others, and they feel like they can bring their whole self to work every day and show up, be valued, be respected, be included in the decision making, but most importantly, be seen. That is what you should be doing. And it should be embedded in your practices, not about a performative statement, not about just throwing some money at a problem. This is about how you recruit, retain, develop, manage talent, and seek ideas and innovation from the people around you. That's what you got to do to address the toxic culture and toxic leadership. The third thing I'm going to tell you to do is know that if you are being silent about what's happening in your organization, that means you're being complicit. Silence is absolutely complicity. So you should not be silent, and you should create mechanisms where your employees are not silent. So here's a mechanism that would be great for you to include to make sure that your employees are not silent, is to do an employee engagement survey annually like you're supposed to, but quarterly, you need to do pulse surveys. In addition to that, you need to create an anonymous and open source feedback loop for employees to share information about things that they see that are wrong. So that might mean you need to have some level of an inbox, if you will, where people can share insight and information where you're not collecting their email address and know who it came from, but you want to hear directly from employees. You can't silence employee feedback. And you can't be silent when you know that there's a person who's sitting around the table who is creating the environment that you can easily identify as toxic leadership. That is going to destroy your culture if you don't address it. But if you find a way to not only unsilence people or let people speak up and create avenues for people to speak up, you'll begin to address the things that nobody wants to talk about. And in my keynote, I really talk about the behaviors that you need to make sure are operationalized in your organization, that you always have to ask for constant feedback. Think about this. If you're delivering good customer service to your customers and clients, these are the people who pay you money to do what you do. You always want feedback from your customers. You always ask for feedback. Can you tell us how we did today? I literally just got off of a flight and the airline sends me a survey and says, tell us about the flight. And I gave them raw feedback because we sat on the runway for 3 hours because of weather delays. And the staff on the plane had no answers, and they were honest and say, listen, don't ask us about nothing because there's nothing that we can do on this flight. We don't have a terminal, so we can't rebook you. The best thing you can do is go to the app. Well, when we went to the app, it didn't work all the way because we were at a place on the tarmac that didn't have a good cell signal, so people couldn't get through, and then the Wi-Fi wasn't working on the plane. So I gave them all of that feedback. That feedback is important. It's going to help them to improve. So if that feedback from your customers is going to help you to improve your business, why wouldn't you accept feedback from your employees to help you to improve what you're doing as a leader, what you're doing as an organization? What are you doing to manage the culture? You got to be comfortable with feedback. Feedback is the lifeblood of a good organization. So there you have it, the framework of what you need to be focused on. This is the number one problem nobody's talking about. We talk about the P&L, we talk about tariffs, we'll talk about the uncertainty in the environment. There's so much external uncertainty that deserves some conversation and is getting a lot of conversation today. But the internal uncertainty of declining employee engagement surveys, low Glassdoor reviews, managers who are disengaged, employees who are leaving to go work for the competition, or maybe they just go into a totally different industry and becoming entrepreneurs. You see it and know what's going on, but you're paralyzed to do something about it because you're worried that if you do something about it, it's going to get worse. Well, what's really worse than losing lots of money, lots of top talent, losing knowledge capital out of your organization, and being made a pariah that you can't embrace diversity and inclusion? There's nothing worse than that. We can look around and see the companies who are literally getting beat up by that right now. So I'm asking you to talk about the number one challenge in the C-suite, and that is toxic culture. You have to talk about it. And if you don't want to talk about it one-on-one in a small group, then maybe you should talk to me about coming to share a presentation about how you can turn your culture around. How do you go from toxic to transformational? How do you go from withered and wretched to world-class? I can show you the framework very simply, and it revolves around how your leaders lead, how you train them, what you teach them, but most importantly, what you expect them to do and hold them accountable to do. This is what I share in a presentation. This is what I do to add value to people. And so if this video added any value to you, if you feel like this is something that is worthy, then I want you to share this video with your feed. I want you to share this video with people around you. Do not be afraid to move it forward because somebody needs to hear this message because they are refusing to talk about the number one challenge that's facing the C-suite. And we got to get this message out, not for me, not for my accolades or for my gratification, but we need to build organizations and cultures where people are working with people that they admire and working in an organization that they feel valued, respected, included, and visible, that they never want to leave, that they get to do good work with good people, meaningful work with meaningful people. And it will only happen when we address the biggest elephant in the room, and that is a toxic leadership culture that is being condoned and conducted by some of the leaders that you lead. So I want to thank you for watching this Leadership Live with Anton Gunn. I'll see you next Wednesday, same bat time, same bat channel. Everybody have a fantastic day. Take care.